I drove 3 hours back to my lakeside mansion, tools in the trunk, ready to finally begin the renovations. But when I arrived, bulldozers were already ripping it apart. "Stop. That's my property." I shouted. The HOA woman only smiled and said, "Not anymore." That's when it hit me. They weren't just tearing down my house. They were covering something up beneath the lake. The air carried the scent of pine and rain as I made my way back to Lake Windale. 3 years. 3 long years since I'd last laid eyes on that aging mansion by the water, the place everyone in town whispered about, called cursed. But to me, it wasn't cursed. It was home. I had purchased it legally, every document clean, county approved, and stamped. My goal was simple: restore it, breathe life into its empty halls, make a whole again. But as I rounded the final curve in the road, I froze. What the hell? 2 bulldozers. Massive yellow machines chewing through my mansion, wooden beams cracking, clouds of dust exploding into the sky, my dream collapsing into debris. "Hey, stop. That's my property." I dropped my toolbox and bolted down the hill like a man possessed. A police officer stepped directly into my path, hand resting near his belt. "Sir, step back. This is an active demolition zone." Demolition? Under whose authority? That's when I saw her. A woman dressed in red, arms folded, eyes sharp and cold as glass. An HOA badge gleamed on her chest. The Lake Windendale Homeowners Association ordered it. She said, calmly, the structure was declared unsafe and condemned. Condemned? That's ridiculous. I own this property. She gave a thin smile. Ownership doesn't override safety, Mr. Hayes. I blinked. "How do you know my name?" Her smile widened slightly, the kind that conceals more than it reveals. "We maintain detailed records on everyone in Lake Windendale." Behind her, the excavator's claw tore into my living room wall, shredding it like cardboard. "Stop that. I have permits." I yelled, pulling a folder from my jacket. "County permits. Signed. Stamped. Legal." The officer looked uncertain, glancing between us. The woman snatched the papers from my hand. "These are dated last month," she said coolly. "The HOA filed a hazard claim 2 months ago. You were notified." I never received anything. No letter. No email. Nothing. She lifted her gaze from the paperwork. "That's not our concern. You're destroying private property. You can't just—" "Officer, escort him off the site," she interrupted. The officer hesitated. "Ma'am, perhaps we should confirm." I said continue. She snapped. The earth shook as the mansion gave way, collapsing inward. My mansion, my dream, everything I had planned reduced to dust and splinters. I stood there numb, listening to the echo of cracking timber roll through the trees. Then I noticed something strange. The bulldozer operator wasn't watching the wreckage. He kept glancing toward the lake. Another worker leaned close to him, whispering, pointing toward the water. I followed their line of sight. In the rippling surface, I saw it, a faint glimmer beneath the water, the outline of something structured, almost architectural. The HOA woman caught me staring. Her expression hardened instantly. "You didn't see anything," she said quietly. But I had, and in that moment I understood. They weren't just demolishing a house. They were burying a secret. I didn't sleep that night. The sounds replayed endlessly in my mind, with splintering, glass shattering, my future collapsing. At dawn, I drove straight to the county records office. If the HOA claimed my permits were invalid, I would prove them wrong. I carried every document, receipts, signed contracts, the deed itself. When the clerk entered my name into the system, she frowned. "Sir, there's no record of a Daniel Hayes owning property in Lake Windendale." "That's impossible. I bought it 6 months ago. The county approved everything." She turned the monitor toward me. Blank. My purchase file, the title transfer, even the inspection records, she murmured. It's like it never existed. Someone had erased it. She leaned closer and lowered her voice. "If you want my advice, leave this alone. People who challenge the Lake Windendale HOA don't end well." I left with my heart pounding. The folder in my hands suddenly felt worthless. Paper without power. Next, I went to the bank and demanded my transaction history. The banker scrolled through my account. "Mr. Hayes, I don't see any payment to the county for property. You cashed my cashier's check. Look again." He swallowed. "There's no record." Again, no record. No trace. Outside, the cool wind hit my face. My hands trembled. Everything I had built erased like I had never set foot in this town. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. A distorted voice spoke. "You should have stayed away, Daniel. The lake keeps its secrets." "Who is this?" The call ended. My stomach tightened. I scanned the quiet street, just drifting leaves and silence. That evening, I returned to the lake. The demolition site was fenced off, police tape snapping in the breeze. I slipped through the trees until I reached the shoreline. The water shimmered under moonlight. Calm, too calm. Then I saw it again. Beneath the surface, a faint blue glow. A square shape like a submerged window deep underwater. I pulled out my phone and recorded it. But when I replayed the video, nothing appeared. No glow, no structure. Footsteps crunched behind me. Who's there? A flashlight beam blinded me. The same HOA woman stood there, her red outfit almost luminous in the dark. "You just don't learn, do you?" she said. "This property is under HOA authority now. Trespassing won't be tolerated. You destroyed my home. You erased my records. And you expect me to walk away?" She stepped closer. "Walk away, Daniel, before the lake takes you too." She turned and disappeared into the darkness, boots grinding against gravel. I looked back at the water. The blue light flickered once more, like an eye opening beneath the surface. That's when I knew this wasn't about property anymore. It was about hiding whatever lay buried beneath that lake. The next morning, fog rolled over Lake Windendale like a restless spirit. Her warning echoed in my head. Before the lake takes you too. If they could erase my ownership, demolish my house, watch my every move, then I needed undeniable proof. Real proof. That's how I found myself standing outside the HOA headquarters. A polished white building that looked perfectly ordinary from the outside. Large windows, manicured hedges, pristine walls. But something about it felt wrong. Inside, every footstep echoed. Too quiet, too sterile. I waited until dusk, then slipped around a side entrance where I'd seen employees leave earlier. The lock wasn't difficult. One careful twist of a screwdriver, and it clicked open. I shouldn't have had to break in, but they had left me no choice. I shouldn't have had to break in like that, but they had pushed me into a corner. The hallway lights hummed overhead, a faint electrical buzz that made the place feel sterile and wrong. Along the walls hung framed photographs of smiling board members at ribbon cuttings and community events. And there she was in every single one, always centered, always poised. Beneath her polished nameplate it read, R. Donovan, President, Lake Windendale HOA. At the end of the corridor, I found a door labeled Archives, restricted. Locked, of course. I forced it open, my heart hammering in my chest. Inside were rows of filing cabinets, hundreds of them, crammed with decades of paperwork. Old property maps, development permits, legal filings stacked in fading folders. But one drawer stood out. Windale Project, 1973. I pulled it open and my breath caught in my throat. Blueprints, grainy black and white photographs. Type report stamped confidential across the top. Substructure beneath lake, approved for sealed research facility funded by Lake Windendale Development Board. This wasn't just an HOA. They had built a government-funded laboratory beneath the lake. I flipped to the next page. Incident log. July 1974, 2 workers missing. August 1974, containment breach. Subject escaped through drainage channel. September 1974, facility sealed and flooded. My pulse spiked. What the hell had they been studying? On the final page, a photo of my mansion's foundation appeared. Red circles marked structural beams leading directly toward the lake, straight toward the submerged facility. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Someone else was here. I ducked behind a metal shelf as the archive door creaked open. A flashlight beam cut across the room. It was her. R. Donovan. "I know you're here, Daniel. she said softly. You think you're the first person to look for those files. I didn't move, didn't breathe. She stepped closer to the open drawer. These records were meant to stay buried. The lake isn't what you think it is. Then what is it? I demanded, stepping out from behind the shelf. What's under there? She didn't even flinch. Something that should have remained sealed, she replied. Your mansion was built over the last access point. So you destroyed my house to protect your secret? Her voice dropped, almost trembling. You think this is about a secret? The lake has been leaking for years. And if it wakes again... She stopped abruptly. Her earpiece crackled. Someone spoke urgently on the other end. Her expression shifted. Too late, she whispered. It's already started. Before I could grab her, she killed the lights and disappeared into the hallway. Hey, get back here. I snatched the nearest folder and sprinted for the exit. Outside, the air felt wrong. Metallic, heavy. The surface of the lake shimmered unnaturally, rippling as though something massive moved beneath it. And then I heard it, a low, resonant sound rising from the water. Not quite a roar, more like a breath. I glanced at the file clutched in my hands. Across the front, stamped in bold ink, Subject W01. Do not approach the water. My pulse thundered in my ears. My home hadn't been demolished by accident. They were trying to keep something contained. And now it was waking up. Night swallowed Lake Windendale quickly. No moon, no stars, just thick fog rolling over the roads. I parked near the police barricade where red lights flashed against the mist. Officers lined the perimeter. Beyond them, the lake glowed faintly, like it was alive. What's happening? I shouted. A sergeant lifted his hand. Areas restricted. Evacuation order in effect. Evacuation? For what? He didn't answer. He only stared at the water. The surface churned though the air was still. Waves pulsed outward. Beneath it, that blue glow throbbed steadily, like a heartbeat. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. It's awake. Don't let them seal it again. I looked around. No one else reacted. The message was meant for me. I slipped through the fog, ducking past the barricade until I reached the shoreline. The air smelled like rust and ozone. Fragments of my demolished mansion floated on the surface, with planks, shattered glass, twisted nails. Then bubbles erupted, dozens of them. At the center of the lake, something rose. At first I thought it was debris, but it kept rising. A black structure coated in algae and steel plating emerged from the depths. A hatch, the submerged facility. The metal door split open with a grinding scream, spilling dark water across the surface. And then something crawled out, long, thin, gleaming, like an arm. I stumbled backward. Engines roared behind me. HOA trucks stormed in, spotlights blazing. Men in hazmat suits poured out. Donovan stood at the front, shouting into a radio. Contain the breach. No one near the shoreline. Her eyes locked onto mine. Hayes, you shouldn't be here. What is that? I demanded, her face drained of color. The lake was built to contain it. Your mansion covered the last vent. When you disturbed the foundation, you destroyed my home to trap it again? She nodded slowly. Yes, to keep everyone alive. The thing in the water rose higher. Its body shimmered like liquid metal, hunched and towering. Its eyes burned with that same blue light I had seen beneath the surface. And then it made a sound, not speech, not words. A vibration that shook the ground, rattled the trucks, fractured the air itself. Windows shattered. Floodlights burst. Officers screamed as the fog thickened around us. Back! Everyone back! Donovan yelled. I grabbed her arm. You can't stop it. Tell me what it is. Tears glistened in her eyes. It's not a what, Daniel. It's a who. I went cold. It was human, she whispered. Part of the 1973 experiment. They called it Subject W01. It adapted. It survived. And it remembers. Remembers what? She didn't answer. Instead, she raised a flare gun and fired into the sky. A red streak tore through the fog, illuminating the creature completely. Tall, twisted, skin like oil, half a human face stretched across something inhuman. And it was staring straight at me. Then it slipped back beneath the surface. Silence followed. Donovan lowered the flare. "It saw you," she said quietly. "Now it knows your name." My throat tightened. "What does that mean?" She turned toward her team. "Lock down the perimeter. No one leaves Windendale until W01 is secured." I stared at the lake. The glow had vanished, but I knew it wasn't over. Whatever I had awakened wasn't going back to sleep. 3 days since the breach. 3 days since the lake opened its eyes. The HOA sealed every road in and out of Lake Windendale. The news blamed chemical contamination. Lies. Guards stood at every intersection. Drones buzzed overhead. Curfews fell at sunset. But I couldn't leave anyway, because every time I closed my eyes, I heard it, the water, calling my name, Daniel, and I woke each night drenched in sweat. Lungs burning, heart hammering like I'd been drowning for minutes. I realized something was terribly wrong inside me. My reflection in the truck's mirror looked almost alien. Skin unnaturally pale, veins faintly glowing blue whenever the light caught them. Whatever stirred beneath the lake had left a mark. A part of it lived inside me now. That night, I drove back to the ruins of my mansion. The demolition site was quiet, fenced off, guarded by a lone officer slouched in his patrol car, half asleep. I slipped past him, boots sinking into the wet mud. Each step a soft crunch in the fog, until I reached the dock. The water was unnervingly still, unnaturally calm, like it was waiting. I crouched close, whispering, "What do you want from me?" The surface rippled faintly, responding as though it understood. Then letters formed, not in the air, but inside my head. Remember. A sudden flash of images assaulted me. White corridors, alarms blaring, figures in hazmat suits running, and a man screaming as blue light exploded from his chest. And then, a moment of terrifying clarity. A woman, short hair, lab coat, tears streaming, whispering again, "Remember." I didn't hesitate. I drove straight to the hospital and demanded a scan. The doctor studied my x-ray, frowning. "Mr. Hayes, fragments of metal. Nanotech, but..." His voice dropped, almost a whisper. "It's alive." Before he could explain, I left my phone buzzing again. The same unknown number flashed. 3 simple words. "She's waiting below." I knew where that meant. Back at the lake, fog had thickened into a wall. Patrol boats glided silently across the surface, searchlights cutting slices through the mist. Donovan barked orders from the dock, her voice sharp and precise. I crouched behind a tree, listening. "Seal the west drain," she said. "Contamination is spreading faster than expected." Stepping forward, I shouted, "You mean I'm the contamination, don't you?" She spun, eyes wide. "Daniel, you shouldn't be here. Stop lying." Her voice wavered slightly. "You knew this would happen when you destroyed my house." I froze. "We didn't destroy it to hide the facility," she said, taking a slow breath. "We destroyed it to keep you from remembering." Her words cut like ice. "Remember what?" "You weren't supposed to come back," she said. "You were part of the original experiment, Daniel. Bobby wasn't a creature. It was a fusion. You and it were once the same." "No!" I screamed. But even as I did, the water behind me began moving again, rising, twisting, forming the same shape I'd seen the night of the first breach. The lake whispered in a voice I felt more than heard. Softer this time. "Come home." Donovan raised her weapon. "Stay back." But my feet moved on their own. The glow reflected in my eyes. Inside me, memories surged. The lab, the accident, the blue light, the drowning, the awakening in this body. I wasn't just connected to the lake. I was part of it. Night fell heavier than ever. The air thick and damp, almost alive, watching me. I sat in my truck staring at the heap of shadows where my mansion had stood. Something was off. Why risk everything? Lawsuits, police scrutiny, demolition, just to erase one house. Then I noticed it. Faint blue lights flickering from behind the demolition site. Rhythmic, deliberate, far too organized to be random. I stepped into the mud quietly, following him down a newly carved path leading straight to the shoreline. 2 excavators, half submerged, clawed into the mud where my boat dock had been. Men in reflective vests worked silently, while Donovan stood above them, clipboard in hand. Phone pressed to her ear. "What are you doing to my lake?" I shouted, storming toward her. The workers froze. She turned, startled, then hardened. "You shouldn't be here," she said icily. "This area is under environmental restoration. Property rights have been forfeited." "Environmental restoration?" I laughed bitterly. "You're digging under my land at midnight." Her lips curled into that same smug half-smile I'd seen before. "You think you own this land," she said softly, "but the truth has been buried here for decades." I demanded, "What truth?" She didn't answer. Instead, she whispered to one of the workers. A moment later, a tarp was pulled aside, revealing a massive steel hatch buried in the mud. Rusted circular, stamped with faded U.S. property insignia. Restricted access. I froze. "What is that?" I asked. She stepped closer, calm, unnervingly steady. "That's why your mansion was never meant to stand here. You bought land that never truly belonged to you." "You're lying." I snapped. "I have the deed. Recorded. Legal." She shook her head. "Deeds can be forged. Records can be altered. But history," her eyes flickered nervously, "history cannot be erased." One of the workers muttered, "Ma'am, it's leaking again." She turned sharply. "Seal it. Now." But before they could move, a deep metallic groan echoed from the lake. The ground trembled slightly. A burst of bubbles erupted, spreading across the surface like something alive. "Back!" she shouted. I stumbled as a hatch shuddered, releasing a pressurized blast of air, carrying the sharp scent of rust and something ancient. Her composure shattered. "You weren't supposed to see this," she muttered. I grabbed her arm. "See what?" She looked at the lake. "The past," she whispered. "The one we were paid to keep buried." I froze. Beneath the moonlight, something metallic slowly rose. A doorway. And for the first time, I understood the demolition wasn't about my house. It was about what lay buried beneath it. The water churned unnaturally. I stood frozen as the lake bulged upward, something below pushing to escape. Donovan's voice trembled as she barked into her radio. "Containment now!" She wasn't in control anymore. I took a step closer. The hatch creaked, cracked open. Pressurized air hissed out, carrying a chemical stench. My eyes stung, but I didn't move. I needed answers. "What's under there?" I demanded. She stared at the water, pale. Finally, she whispered, "It's not supposed to exist." "Not supposed to exist?" "The government built it. A research chamber. Hidden. Flooded. Then the HOA was paid to keep anyone from digging too deep. Your mansion built over it. Your renovations triggered." I swallowed hard, dread pooling in my stomach. My abandoned mansion had been standing on top of a secret no one was meant to find. Motion sensors, alarms, hidden triggers. I realized I had set them all off. The air around us grew colder. Machinery whispered, and water dripped from unseen pipes. A low thud echoed from the depths below. Then another. Ripples raced across the lake as something stirred beneath. The workers shouted, stumbling backward in panic. The HOA woman's clipboard dropped to the mud. Her voice cracked over the radio. "Evacuate. Repeat. Evacuate immediately." I stepped forward despite the chaos, my pulse hammering. "What's waking up down there?" Her voice trembled. "It's not human." Before I could react, the lake erupted. A geyser of icy water blasted upward, sweeping us both off our feet. Through the spray, I saw it. A massive rusted metal structure clawing its way out of the depths. Not a building, more like a vault, riveted and veined with cables trailing like arteries. Dim blue lights pulsed across its surface, rhythmic and alive. I crawled backward, heart pounding, drawn by a mixture of fear and fascination. "What is that thing?" I whispered. The HOA woman shook her head violently. "We were told it was sealed forever. Experiments classified." "Experiments." Her face crumpled into regret. "They built something inside, and it's still alive." "Alive?" I echoed, voice tight. The vault groaned. A massive metallic door, began to shift with a grinding roar. Water surged violently, spilling and retreating like breathing lungs. And inside that glowing void, I glimpsed movement, a shape vaguely human but distorted. Its eyes opened first, bright electric blue. The light cut through the darkness, and she whispered one last trembling warning before running to her car. Now you understand why no one was ever supposed to live here. The vault hissed. Metallic hums filled the air. Then silence. I was alone, staring at the lake that seemed alive. The wind sliced through broken wood. Water hissed like steam. And beneath it all, a heavy, slow heartbeat throbbed from under the surface. I stumbled back, drenched and shaking. The vault sat half open, moonlight glinting on algae and rust. Inside, the faint blue glow pulsed like a dying star fighting to remain alive. The HOA woman's SUV roared away, tires kicking mud, her shouts swallowed by the night. Alone, just me and whatever they had buried. I watched as a figure rose from the vault, tall, human-shaped, body wrapped in wet, torn fabric threaded with metallic threads. Its face half concealed by a rusted mask turned toward me. "Who are you?" I yelled. No response, only a mechanical breath echoing through the trees. "You were an experiment," I said, stepping closer. "Were you?" A distorted voice crackled, not from his mouth, but a speaker embedded in its chest. "Not experiment." It rasped, "Containment breach." "Containment of what?" I whispered, heart hammering. It gazed past me at the lake, then back. "This ground isn't safe. They sealed it for a reason. It wasn't a threat. It was guarding against one." The earth trembled again, harder. The water swirled violently. Bubbles and silt erupted, a deep rumble rising from beneath. The figure's glowing eyes shifted toward the noise. "It wakes," it said. "What wakes?" I demanded. No answer. It stepped into the lake. Ripples glimmered with faint light. It glanced back once. "Run." "No." I screamed, chasing it. The vault burst open, water exploding upward. Something vast shifted below, massive enough to tilt the lake. I glimpsed it, a hulking, plated form, round and wide like the hull of a sunken ship, or worse. The figure plunged into the glow and vanished. Silence returned, water stilled. Only faint blue light pulsing beneath the surface. Headlights cut through the fog. A convoy of black vehicles surged from the forest road. Men in dark uniforms, armed and silent. One flashed a badge briefly. "Sir, leave this area," he said. "Federal lockdown. Now." "There's something down there," I shouted. "It's alive." He cut me off. "We know." Floodlights snapped on, revealing a massive tent where my mansion had stood. Trucks unloaded sealed crates stamped with radiation symbols. Code Blue confirmed. Subject Alpha re-engaged. The man spoke into his radio. Drenched and trembling, I watched him fence off everything I loved. One agent's gaze lingered, pity in his eyes. "You shouldn't have come back," he said quietly. "That house wasn't abandoned. It was quarantined. Everything I thought I owned, my land, my lake, my dreams, was gone, reclaimed by secrets older than I could imagine. At dawn, I took one last look at the lake. Calm again on the surface, but beneath, faint blue light pulsed slow and steady. Alive. Somewhere down there, something waited, and now it knew my name. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe. The next one will shock you even more.